Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today we're going to be doing my next episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Picks My TBR. So I'm going to pick my queen now. If you haven't watched any of these before, I have done an announcement which explains how it works, and there have been 4 episodes so far with 4 different queens, so you can go back and watch those. But for today, this morning, I'm going to pick my queen and some of their challenges, and then I'll show you the books, and then I'll go away and read them and talk about them. So here are the queens that are left. I'm not looking, I'm going to pick a random one. Ooh, so today it's Monet Exchange, and she's the sponge queen. So here it says, soak it up, a fast read. That shouldn't be a problem. I'll try and find a fast read. Okay, so if you watched my last video with Heidi and Closet, you'll know that in August I'm doing the Summer Fling readathon, which is a readathon about romance books and with romance prompts. So I'm going to try and incorporate those into this TBR because it means that I can read them at the same time. And it just so happens that on my TBR for that, I've got Blitzed by Alexa Martin. These romance books I read within a day. They're really addictive, they're really easy to read, they're ones that I soak up really quickly. This is the 3rd one in the series, and we're following Bryn and her NFL player, no doubt. So I think I'm going to pick this one for Monet, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Okay, next up is my Queen's Challenge. I'm going to shuffle my cards here. Oh, shuffle, 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 shuffle. Right, I'm going to pick the top one. Oh, I think I've had this one before. This is Dance. It's a dance challenge. A bendy book. Pick a paperback. That's nice and easy. For that, I could have picked any of the books on my TBR for the readathon, but I'm going to pick this one. It's The Art of French Kissing by Brianna R. Shrum. This is a YA contemporary story about two teenagers that fall in love at a culinary competition, and yes please, thank you very much. So I'm going to use this one, and it is particularly bendy, so that one. Okay, next up is category is, so let's see what runway look we are going for this time. I'm shuffling, shuffling, shuffling to take top one. Oh, they're stuck together. This is Patriotic, set in Britain. Okay, so I'm gonna have to find a book set in the UK. Okay, for that one, I'm actually going to go for non-fiction because I want to pick up some of these books that I've had on my shelf for a little while now. And that is Kill the Black One First by Michael Fuller. This is a non-fiction book, and it's Michael Fuller's memoir about his time in the police force. He was actually the first black chief constable, I believe. Yeah, Chief Constable of Kent, and this talks about his relationship with people in the police force, growing up as part of the Windrush generation of immigrants in 1959, and I think this has got a lot to do as well with, I think he was adopted potentially, I'm not sure. So I think this will be definitely the right one to read during this time. I'm trying to read more black authors. I wanted to read this non-fiction, and it's set in Britain, so what more could you ask for, really? Okay, and finally, I've got to pick from my 4 judges. I'm gonna mix them up here so I don't know who's where. Mix, 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 mix. Right, I'm going for this one. Oh, it's RuPaul. Don't fuck it up. And that is an author that you love. Okay, again, I was able to pick off of my romance TBR for the Summer Fling. For that, I'm going for a Penelope Douglas book because I have given 5 stars, I think, to everything I've read by this author now, and that is Corrupt. This is fulfilling a prompt on the Summer Fling, I think, for sort of a dark book. I can't remember what it fits in for now, but it's on the TBR, and I can now put it on this TBR too. This is about a girl who falls, I believe, for her boyfriend's brother. I think he might be quite dark and dangerous. I think he's a professional basketball player. All sorts of things that, you know, might work, might not, but with Penelope Douglas, I'm fairly confident that I'm going to love it. So don't fuck it up, Penelope, or there'll be trouble. So this is the 4th one. So I'm going to go away and read those books. I'll come back and tell you my thoughts, and then we'll see if Monet can Shantae stay or sashay away. Okay, I'm going to try and film me talking about this book before I sweat to death. It is so hot at the moment. I recorded the previous clip you saw this morning, and I have already finished my first book. So the category is patriotic, set in Britain, and that is Kill the Black One First by Michael Fuller, which is a memoir. I listened to this on audio and followed along with it, and it was such an enthralling and interesting read that I just couldn't put it down. It's very readable, which I really enjoy in non-fiction, something that can hook you in. And we start at Michael's sort of formative years as a child, living in a care home, and he talks about his love for his particular one of the workers there, Margaret, who he considered his mum really, and who unfortunately died quite young. But she instilled in him a lot of values that he says he's taken with him all the way throughout his life, and she just was very important in his early life especially. Michael then went on to join the police cadets and later on became Chief Constable of Kent Police, and we do learn a little bit. We know that he got married and he has children, but this is very much after his childhood, a book focused on his career and his progression through the police force and the types of racism that he came across, because he not only came across racism with people on the streets, but also he was victimized by his own black communities, and also internally within the police force there was internal racism going on, and there was a lot for him to fight against. And I think he talks in this book, and he definitely moved through his career not accepting things that was happening to him. He did pick his battles though, and he did it in such a calm and matter-of-fact and thoughtful way that I really commend him for the way that he tackled these things, where a lot of us I think would have gone in sort of hot-headed, and he didn't, and he went through the right channels, and he thought about it, and he thought to himself, you know, this isn't right, what can I do about it? And he took this breath that he learned from Margaret, to take a breath, have a think, and then decide what action to take, which I thought was really interesting, and just showed what a difference he could make and tackling things in this way. It's a shame he had to tackle them, for sure, but he definitely made strides in his career, and we witness different things as we go through his career, from the Brixton riots in 1981, which is where the name of this book comes from, because somebody shouted "Kill the Black One First," and a petrol bomb was thrown. That petrol bomb hit the police officer next to him, but he's almost sure that that was aimed at him, so a first sign of someone picking on him because of the colour of his skin. And he talks about knife crime, he talks about the Stephen Lawrence case, and he talks about things that happened to him when there were senior officers that were saying things or made comments, and how that made him feel, and how he wanted to work out how to deal with that and process that, and how people were trying to push him not to further his career and to stay at a lower level, and his decision to move up the ranks. And I was really enthralled by this book. I found his life very interesting, I think as well because it's from a UK perspective. This book is a UK perspective. For me it was very relatable in terms of the setting, and it was very interesting to me and important, I think, for me to learn more about the UK and its police force. And some of the stuff just made me feel very uncomfortable about the police force as a whole, if I'm honest. And I know that there's not, you know, not everybody has those views, but the limited amount of people that stood up and said that's not right, you shouldn't be doing that. And I think that's what a lot of the things that we're hearing come down to, is being a bystander is not okay. Just because you're not the one being racist does not mean it's okay to stand by and let other people make racist comments, and that we need to make a stand and say that's not okay. You can't speak like that, it's not okay, that's racist. Yeah, very articulate, very interesting man, and I'm really pleased I read this, and it was a strong 5 stars. So Monet Exchange is doing really well so far. Okay, so it's only a few days later and I've already finished. So let me talk to you about the different books. So Monet Exchange Sponge Queen was Soak It Up, a fast read, and for that I picked this one. I enjoyed this one. It was probably the weakest out of the three in this series that I've read. I just didn't quite get the sort of tension between the two. There wasn't that sort of drama element that sort of added any reason why these two weren't sort of connecting, and yeah, I don't know, I just thought it was all a bit tenuous and I wasn't quite so happy with the relationship, and that I didn't feel the chemistry between these two. So it was okay, but it wasn't my favourite, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. And then I moved on to my challenge, which was a bendy book, and for that I'd picked The Art of French Cooking by Brianna R. Shrum. This is a YA contemporary romance and it's sweet. It really ticked all the boxes in terms of the blurb for me, with the food competition and you know, 2 people who are competing, sort of a hate to love romance. And the food bit was good. It was quite fun, this sort of element of them staying in the same place, going through this cookery competition, but I didn't believe the romance once it started. It escalated extremely quickly. I didn't understand the things that happened at the end. I thought, whoa, that came out of left field. I don't really understand why you've said those words now. It just seemed all a bit rushed and a bit fast. Now that may be just because it's YA, everything's a little bit more heightened, because as teenagers are more heightened in their emotions, and that's very normal. But for me it just missed the mark a little bit, and I just missed some of the connections, some of the storyline. It just felt a bit rushed in places, and yeah, I enjoyed the first half more than the second half, I'd say. So with this one I gave it 3 stars as well. And for RuPaul's Don't Fuck It Up, which is an author you love, I'd picked Penelope Douglas because I've loved all the books that I've read by her so far. This one, Corrupt, was one that I was slightly worried about because of its subject matter. This is the story. It's written from 2 points of view. We've got Erica and we've got Michael. It's also flits between the past and the present, and that sounds like, well, that's quite a lot to be taking in, but actually it's okay and it makes sense. The basic premise is we're learning in the past about this group of masked boys who went to school with our main character Erica, and one of them is Michael, and they're very rich, they're very privileged. They go around pulling these quite elaborate pranks and causing quite a lot of mayhem, and not pranks in the fun sort of jokey sort of way. This involves beating people up, sort of mass orgies, and treating women like they're objects. And Erica is a few years younger. She is a family friend of Michael. Michael's one of these boys, and there's always been this thing between the parents or the mothers that Michael's younger brother Trevor and Erica are going to end up together. So there's always been that sort of element there. Erica's quite intrigued by these boys. She's intrigued by Michael. She definitely feels a connection, and at 16 she really sort of feels like there's something between them. Something happens, I don't want to spoil what that is, and then in the present they're not talking to each other, and some of these boys have ended up in prison and now they're out for revenge, including Michael. So in this, we're unravelling what's happened, we're unravelling why they're out for revenge, we're unravelling this tension between Michael and Erica, and some aspects of this were really good, and then some didn't work for me at all. So it was a page turner, that is for sure. It was definitely a page turner. It had some really steamy scenes, but the problem for me with this one is it just went to places where I didn't feel comfortable. It was just a little bit too dark, the things that were going on for me, and it took me out of a comfort zone that I was happy with, really. It really is sort of 18 plus, this book. One of the big things I found is that Erica forgives Michael for something halfway through the book, and I just couldn't believe how quickly she forgave him, and for some quite horrendous things, and I just couldn't get past that, really, how quick she was to forgive forgive such heinous things. This reminded me of like a souped up, really hardcore Cruel Intentions. I don't know if anyone's ever watched that film, but it reminded me like the darkness of that, these overprivileged rich people that are bored with their life, so they're wreaking havoc and playing with people's emotions and playing with people's lives, and without considering the consequences. And that element was quite interesting, but as I say, it just went a bit too dark for me, and I couldn't get on board with some of the things that happened, and I couldn't get past some of the things. So it was good, but I wouldn't carry on in this series personally, and it was a 3 stars for me. So Monet has 1 5-star and 3 3-stars, giving her 14, which isn't enough to stay in the top. So she's going to have to lip sync for her life. So let's pick a lip sync card. I've got them here. I'm going to give them a shuffle. I'm not looking at them. It would be nice if I could focus. Okay, you ready? I'm going to pick this one. Cool for Summer by Demi Lovato, a book set in the summer. Right, wait here and I'll go and look for one. Okay, so I can't find one on my summer fling TBR, unfortunately, which I would have preferred, but I'm going to go for this one because it literally has summer in the title, and that is Endless Summer by Jennifer Eccles. This, I think, is a bind-up, perhaps, of 2 books. It's a bind-up of 2 books, but if I enjoy it, I'll just carry on. But I'm only going to use the first book as the one that I'm going to be judging the lip sync on. Okay, so there was a bit of a change of plans. You'll remember that I picked Cool for Summer by Demi Lovato for the lip sync, which is a book set in summer, and I started Endless Love, and it was just horrendous. I don't know if it's just because it's dated or because of the YA, or the, I shouldn't say the YA aspect, but like the old school YA aspect. It was, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. So I ended up picking up something else off my shelf. And this, I googled books set in the summer, and this one came up. It's called The Lido by Libby Page. So it is meant to be set in the summer, and it was a good story. It's set in London, it's set in Brixton, and it's based around this sort of 84-year-old woman called Rosemary, who has swum at this Lido pretty much her whole life, normally alongside her husband who's now died. And throughout the story we're learning about her life and her relationship with her husband and how that ties into the Lido. And then we're also following a journalist called Kate, who is a bit disillusioned with her life. She doesn't really know what she's doing. She's not very confident, but she's been given this job of doing an article on the Lido because the council are thinking of selling off the land and it being shut down. And so her and Rosemary sort of end up becoming friends and getting to know each other, and through all this it unravels their different stories and how they manage to sort of help each other in different ways. It's fairly gentle, I'd say. It's quite a gentle book. It was a nice read. It was really well written. It was fairly obvious what was going to happen, and I felt like there was no big surprises, but it was a really nice, gentle read about an older woman sort of helping a younger woman navigate and just the friendships that are formed between different people, and what a local community place can mean to different people of all ages, of all statuses, of all genders. And this Lido has touched sort of lots of people's lives, and it's interesting to see that as they sort of talk about it. So it was good. It wasn't great, but it was good, and it was a good book. So I ended up giving it 3 stars, which unfortunately means that Monet Exchange only ends up with 17 overall, and she needs 19 to carry on. So I'm sorry, Monet, but you need to sashay away. So that's another drag queen down, and we are moving through them slowly but surely. So we'll be on either season 2 or the All-Stars season, which may be where I decide that the ones that have made it through to staying end up. I haven't decided how I'm going to do the final yet. We'll see. But yeah, I will be back with you soon with my next queen, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.